The story of Dark Souls is certainly mysterious. The game avoided conventional storytelling and instead gave the player the burden of uncovering the truth on their own. One could pull back the curtain of Anor Londo and discover the machinations of Gwyndolin and Frompt, or bring the Lord Vessel to Keith and learn of another layer to the story. Hidetaka Miyazaki, the genius behind the Souls franchise, grew up in poverty in the city of Shizuoka. Unable to afford any means of entertaining himself, Miyazaki would spend most of his childhood reading books found in his local library. He was fascinated with Western tales of fiction, but his English was not fluent enough to understand every single word. Many times he would read a story and find that he couldn't understand half of it, and so he would connect the words and fill in the blanks, forming a story of his own that used the pieces that had been laid out before him. There are many criticisms of Bloodborne's story when compared with Dark Souls. People find that the characters are empty, that the story isn't as entertaining, or that the plot doesn't seem to be as rich when compared to the tale of Gwyn and the First Flame. And they're right. Bloodborne, like Demon Souls before it, doesn't have the answers to be solved within the game itself. There's no dialogue or item description which can provide the player with that crucial piece of information that explains everything. There's no brilliant detective who can explain it for someone in a condensed manner. Bloodborne is a book where half of the words can't be understood, and the reader must fill in the blanks on their own. There is no answer to Bloodborne's story. Bloodborne is a game that asks you what you think. It asks you what your story is. What do you make of the unknown? The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Chapter 1. Byrgenwerth, Koss, and the Vakish Spider.
Byrgenwerth is an old place of learning, and the Tomb of the Gods, carved out below Yharnam, should be familiar to every hunter. Well, once a group of young Byrgenwerth scholars discovered a holy medium deep within the tomb. This led to the founding of the Healing Church and the establishment of blood healing. In this sense, everything sacred in Yharnam can be traced back to Byrgenwerth.
Everything begins at Byrgenwerth, an old institution of learning. Byrgenwerth was built in a peaceful, secluded area away from the neighboring city and close to a great lake. It is here that a group of individuals studied and explored the depths of human knowledge. There were many students at Byrgenwerth. There were, however, certain individuals of note other than the students, figures of importance who formed the inner circle, so to speak. While not all of them were scholars, for the purposes of this analysis, we'll refer to this group of individuals as the Byrgenwerth Scholars, or the Scholars for short. These individuals, who we can safely conclude were members of the Scholars, consisted of Willem, Lawrence, Mikolash, and Carol. Master Willem was the head of the academy and a highly respected figure. All characters who refer to Willem specifically refer to Master Willem, indicating a deep respect for the figure, even if they had differences in beliefs. Lawrence is a much more enigmatic figure, especially for a character so important. From the beast's skull in the Grand Cathedral, the hunter witnesses a memory of an encounter between Lawrence and Willem, in which Willem accuses the younger Lawrence of betraying him. A note left on the cathedral staircase reads, "Place a hand on the altar's sacred covering, and inscribe Master Lawrence's adage upon your flesh." That Lawrence would be revered so highly in The Healing Church has its roots in Byrgenwerth, and naturally borrows heavily from its uniform design. The focus not on knowledge or thought, but on pure pretension would surely bring Master Willem to despair, if only he knew. Lawrence's title is that of the first vicar, given to him both by the human skull of the nightmare in his boss fight, confirming this idea that Lawrence was in fact one of the church's founders, splitting from Byrgenwerth in an event that would later be described as the Schism. Micolash, the boss encountered in the Nightmare of Mensis, was another scholar, as evidenced by the tattered Byrgenwerth uniform he wears during the hunter's fight against him. Micolash also makes references to other parts in Byrgenwerth, which he'll discuss later. Carol was a genius runesmith who, through unknown methods, could listen to the scratchings and utterings of the Great Ones. While she could not understand the inhuman words they spoke, she managed to etch them into visual symbols that could be identified. The Runes workshop tool describes Carol as Runesmith Carol, student of Byrgenwerth, transcribed the inhuman utterings of the Great Ones into what are now called Carol runes. There are also two individuals whom we can believe to be members of the Scholars, German and Maria. German was most assuredly the acquaintance of both Lawrence and Willem. After the hunter defeats Rom, the Vacuous Spider, they can find German whimpering in his sleep. "Oh Lawrence, Master Willem, somebody, help me." German is also, as we know, the first hunter. He founded the workshop, located in a hidden section of the upper cathedral ward, and presumably worked with the church in its infancy. Judging from German's combat proficiency and master craftsmanship, he may have been a bodyguard for tomb excavations, a groundskeeper, or a handyman for the college at large. Maria was German's greatest pupil, and judging from the fact that she takes over the research hall of the Healing Church, it's possible that she was a student at the college under Lawrence. Regardless, her participation in the events which would take place at the hamlet place her as a member of the Byrgenwerth Scholars prior to its schism. We can now look at the Scholars, having explored each one individually as a collective unit. Willem, Lawrence, Micolash, German, Maria, and Carol were individuals at the Byrgenwerth College, an institution dedicated to the furthering of knowledge and the exploration of the massive labyrinth built underground. It was in this labyrinth that the Scholars made the discovery that put everything in Bloodborne into motion. Indeed, the entire history of Bloodborne can be traced to a single defining moment, in which the Scholars discovered something deep inside the ancient Demarian crypts. The executioner Alfred muses that once a group of young Byrgenwerth scholars discovered a holy medium deep within the tomb, this led to the founding of the Healing Church and the establishment of blood healing. Deep inside the labyrinth, the scholars discovered the old blood. It is unclear exactly what was found, but in the upper level of the Byrgenwerth mansion, we can find the empty phantasm shell. Empty invertebrate shell that is said to be a familiar of a Great One. The Healing Church has discovered a great variety of invertebrates, or phantasms as they are called. Whatever was found, it was proof of the existence of the Great Ones. It's possible that the scholars discovered a Briatus, the abandoned and left behind Great One, who would later commune with the Healing Church. They certainly discovered a source of the old blood, the tainted blood of the Great Ones. Whether it was a Briatus or something else is unclear. With the discovery of the old blood and of the Great Ones, everything changed. Evolution became the goal, push the limits of humanity and become something greater, ascend to the level of the Great Ones, push humanity into its next stage. A scribbled note found in the Nightmare lecture hall reads, "Master Willem was right. Evolution without courage will be the ruin of our race." However, it quickly became apparent that some of the scholars, and Lawrence in particular, differed in their belief on how the evolution should be carried out. Carroll's eye rune states, "Eyes symbolize the truth Master Willem sought in his research. Disillusioned by the limits of human intellect, Master Willem looked to beings from higher planes for guidance and sought to line his brain with eyes in order to elevate his thoughts." However, Carroll's metamorphosis runes state, "The discovery of blood made their dream of evolution a reality. Metamorphosis and the excesses and deviation that followed was only the beginning." There are two different resources that the player collects during their time in Bloodborne: blood echoes and insight. The echoes is the method in which the hunter gains power, while insight is the method in which the hunter gains knowledge. While some at Byrgenwerth believe that knowledge and understanding of the Great Ones and the higher planes of existence would lead to humanity's uplifting, others believe that it was through imbibing and fusing with the old blood that would lead to humanity's ascension. This was a concept, anathema to everything Willem stood for. Fear the old blood. These two fundamentally opposed philosophies would lead to the Byrgenwerth Schism. But there's another piece of the puzzle.